Welcome to the Voices of Manufacturing with your hosts, Brian Salee and Michael Mullenberg, where business leaders across the industry share their unique challenges and insights.
It's almost like magic because it takes the learning process sometimes from weeks down to days, sometimes hours.
We want to help people within manufacturing and make them excited to come to work every day and go home safe to their family.
When you bring people in, they're anything but a machine. They're partners that can help you build your business, that can be your success if you treat them right.
And then you start having employees saying, when are you doing my machine? When are you going to come over here to my department? And now you get this buy-in.
This podcast is brought to you by Dazuki, the premier frontline digital transformation solution that allows manufacturers to standardize operations.
Welcome to the Voices of Manufacturing. I'm Brian Salee, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Michael Mullenberg. We've got an exciting topic and guest today. We're seeing many manufacturers struggle to fill open roles. Most recently, I saw the CEO of Aptar on CNBC talking about their biggest challenge as a company, and it's filling open roles at their factories. This challenge is getting a lot of attention, but I'm really not hearing a ton of practical solutions on how you solve this challenge. Michael, I know you have a lot of experience with this particular challenge. You've talked with us previously about what you've called the shifting workforce. What are you seeing in the industry when it comes to this challenge around filling open roles? Is it really as big of a challenge as we're hearing from the mainstream media?
Yeah, I think, Brian, since the pandemic, we're all experiencing, labor shortages in retail and service industries. And, maybe we're waiting to see it on CNBC before we realize how it's impact manufacturing. But I think the trend in manufacturing started well before the pandemic, with people looking for better jobs, retiring early, trying different career paths. And so it has been a challenge for quite a while. And I think the phrase I've heard is it's not only attracting talent or the recruiting, but it's the retaining part of the equation that's particularly difficult these days.
So not only are you having a hard time filling those open roles, but then you've got this leaky bucket as well that is making it even compounding the problem, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, great. We're going to jump in with the guests joining us today have a rather unique story to tell. I kind of laugh about it. I was browsing manufacturing news and I came across the story of a Kawasaki plant in Missouri that hired 40 football players from their local college to work in the factory. I'm a former college football player myself. I thought when I heard this story, that's a great idea. College athletes, they have a strong work ethic. They're used to working as a team, but their schedules are quite busy typically. So my main thought was, how did Kawasaki make this work? And so we're going to jump into this topic today. And joining us is Tim Melvin and Jake Matheny from Kawasaki. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you.
As we kick off this episode, you guys obviously work for Kawasaki. Could you tell us a little bit about your roles there and a little bit about the factory you work at?
Okay, I'll go first. My name's Tim Melvin. I'm currently the human resource manager here at the plant. Been with the company a little over 33 years, and I started as a supervisor in production and have held different positions. In the last 5.5, I've been in the HR. So seen a lot of changes in 33 years, but for production to materials to what we call our production control or planning, and then back to production and into HR. That's been my path here at Kawasaki.
Jake Matheny, I'm production manager over materials and assembly here at Kawasaki. I've been here 18 years. I went to this college right out of high school, about 6 months, American Institute of Business in Des Moines. Didn't really care for it, so I decided to come here just as a job for the summer. And here I am 18 years later after working into full-time team leader, supervisor, general foreman, assistant manager, and production manager for the last 2 years in Maryville.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting background or way you got into manufacturing. I think that's common for a lot of folks. They tend to stumble into it and then stay there a long time. It seems like that's pretty common.
What products are you producing at that Kawasaki plant?
We produce small gasoline-powered engines for lawn and garden and the turf markets. Our primary engine families range from about 14.5 horsepower all the way up to 38.5 horsepower V-twin. And they go into primarily in lawnmowers, whether it be a riding mower or ZTRs are the ones that are prominent in today's market, industrial walk-behinds, things like that. We ship not only domestically, but also to a worldwide market. And our customers are going to put these products into a lot of different units for their lawn and garden sales.
Got it. And it's full assembly from components all the way to finished engine going out the door.
It is, but we do more than that. We actually, a portion of our engine block, we actually have die cast machines, high pressure injection molding, that we will have furnaces. We melt the aluminum. And again, that injection process actually forms the pieces of the engine block. Once they're cooled, they go to what we call our machining area, where they are prepping the piece for assembly. Whether they're drilling, they're tapping, they're getting the gasket surfaces prepared, things like that. And then ultimately it goes to assembly, as you mentioned, from the very first operation, picks up the crankcase, and it completes all the way down the line. They're leak tested. Each one of the engines, Jake's team runs them up and adjusts the RPMs and things like that to our customer specifications. So it truly is a start to finish in engine production here at this facility.
Wow. And you guys are located in Maryville, Missouri. What's the population there? And kind of tell us about what it's like sourcing labor there and finding people to come work, because you guys are doing some pretty sophisticated manufacturing there.
Maryville is right about 11,000 population. It's the county seat of Nottoway County, an extreme northwest portion of Missouri. We're about an hour and a half north of Kansas City, very close to the Iowa border. We get about 60% of our workforce from this county, but in Iowa and the surrounding counties in Missouri is where we draw the rest of our employee base. Very agricultural based. Some of our employees are even part-time farmers. They'll leave here and go to their second job and jump on the tractor or feed their cows or, whatever it is as far as the farming environment. We have steadily grown in the 30 some years, and it's just recently and really with the onslaught of the pandemic is where we started to see some difficulties in, again, as was mentioned earlier, not really the attraction, but the retaining of the people in our positions here.
Yeah. Tell us a little more about that, Tim, as far as, the challenges filling open roles, you mentioned that's somewhat of a challenge for you, but retaining people, you've got that leaky bucket problem that we were talking about earlier. How long has that been going on for you guys now?
Too long, if I may say.
Yeah.
We work very strongly. We have we call it talent management that does an incredible job of recruiting and bringing people into the plant. But we also have that leaky bucket, like you mentioned, and it's difficult to maintain those employees in today's society, in today's opportunities. If they don't like the structure of the job here at Kawasaki, then, drive down Main Street and there's 3, 4, or 5 other places that are hiring on the spot. And it seems like the workforce of today is not as concerned as an old man like me with the benefit side of things. It's what can I do? What job can I perform that fits into my lifestyle that I feel comfortable doing, that does not displace my work-life balance in too big of a manner. And that's what they're after. That's the kind of thing that they're looking for. And we really struggle maintaining that workforce. We've done pay surveys and we feel we have a very equitable pay package. I think our benefit package is incredible, if I may say so. But today's society, again, today's worker is looking for more than that. And we're having a difficult time trying to understand exactly what they're after and to arrange our benefit pay structure, whatever it may be, that not only attracts, but gets them interested to staying here and motivated to doing the work that we require.
It sounds like you've also got some stiff competition in the city and maybe even the county.
We do. Um, the university here in town is another big employer. Surprisingly, for an agricultural small town, Maryville has a pretty solid industrial base. There are several other industries in this town, and from going to different community meetings, we're all facing the same situation with a declining number in the workforce, and again, getting them to motivate to do the work and interested enough to stay put.
Tim, I want to shift, we mentioned that, we read about this fantastic story. I told Michael, it sounds like a movie, something out of a movie. You hired 40 football players from a local college. It just sounds like it'd be a great movie script. I'm curious, how did this happen? How did this get started? I know you guys have it sounds like a strong relationship with the local college. How did you develop that relationship, and really how did this partnership get going?
I'll give you a little bit of a background. And then as far as this particular situation, I think Jake might be able to answer better on that. But for several years now, since I've been in the HR field, we have had a partnership with Northwest, and we call it the Powering Bearcats, which is the mascot for the university. And the attempt is try to express the fact that we have jobs here for college students. And we even do the math for them and how much they can make over the course of a year, over the course of the 4 years, if they would choose to get a job here. And we even have modified some of our structures to even go with uh, some part-time jobs. We call them full-time, part-time. They're Kawasaki employees, but they only work those 20 hours whenever their schedule allows. And we're very flexible with that. But this particular instance is actually more through our contract service agency. And it's an idea I think that Jake and some of his team had. And as far as this particular one you're talking about, Brian, I think maybe Jake could answer that one better as to how it got started.
Tim, one follow-up question for you guys there. Maybe this is for Jake. You are actually using an agency to help recruit and fill some of these open roles. That's an outside agency, not part of Kawasaki. Is that right?
Yes, we have a temporary agency that we work with. They recruit. They're not always recruiting for us as full-time employees. Sometimes they're just filling the gap or hiring the part-time individuals that can't commit to a full shift. But yes, we work with an outside agency. They actually are in-house.
Okay. And when did you guys start working with that outside agency? Has that been something you've had in place for a long time, or is that a recent ad?
It's been something we've had in place for a long time. Like I said, I started here in 2003, and I actually started through, it was Kelly Services at the time, a temporary agency. And we've, over the last 20 years or so, we have changed contract agencies for various reasons.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, Jake, I'd love to hear more about, how this got started then. It sounds like you were heavily involved in, working with this agency to try and fill some roles.
Yeah, so I had first heard from the floor that we had a couple of athletes from Northwest that were working a 10 in the morning to 5 o'clock at night shift. And after that lasted a couple of days, I went out and I just started talking to one or two of them and like, hey, how's it going? How long are you going to be here? We have a referral bonus, and so I was like, if you have any other athletes or friends or college students at all, you could get referrals for everybody that you bring out here. And after a couple of days, I noticed there were 4 or 5 more. So I went back to those individuals and I just started brainstorming ideas. Said, hey, what do you guys think about if you could get enough athletes running your own assembly line? We had an assembly line that was down for, a lack of manpower reasons. So it's kind of like a light bulb went off, like, really? You'd let us do that? I'm like, absolutely. I said, I'm very serious. This is not a joke. If you can get enough athletes and we can spread them out throughout assembly to train them in various jobs, KMM Maryville, we will support it with full-time team leaders if you could get enough people here to sustain your own line. And within a matter of 3 weeks, we had 36 athletes, not all football players. I mean, there was some track, there was some basketball, there were some baseball players, but all started off with mostly football players. If you were coming in, even when we were giving tours, we, announced to everybody, we're going to take you to the Northwest line is what we called it. And you're going to know the sport they play because these guys are monsters. They're huge. I mean, I'm almost 6'2", 220 pounds, and they put me to shame in size. So that's kind of how it all started is, just a conversation of, can you get enough of your buddies out here? And if you can, let's make it work. Let's make it happen. And really, they were the biggest recruiters, just recruiting the other athletes.
Yeah, I'm curious. I think the part you said you even put some full-time resources on that line. And then I heard, you say, how can we make this work? And so how did you make it work? Because as I mentioned before, I'm a former college athlete. I know how much time you have in your day. And it's oftentimes not a ton to get schoolwork done, practice, training, all the other stuff you need to do. So how'd you guys accommodate their busy schedules?
For the most part, all of them except around, I think it was two individuals had the 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. shift. So before before they started their own line, we had them spread out across multiple, same model lines, learning various processes. And then, of course, when first shift ended, we just transferred all the guys over to our second shift line to jump on and start learning other processes. That happened for about 3 weeks until we were comfortable with, hey, we're ready to start the Northwest Flex line. And then once we did that, it was pretty minimal. We provided two experienced team leaders for that are Kawasaki employees, and team leaders on an assembly line. They're the individuals that basically they're there to assist. They're the teachers, the coaches. If somebody's getting behind, has a quality concern, or if they need to take a break or something, then they'll be the people filling in. And we had two team leaders in assembly step up and want that position. I mean, immediately we had a supervisor, Jennifer Clements. She's one of our production supervisors. She's the one, when we started throwing this idea out about a Northwest Flex line, she stepped up immediately and said, hey, I want to supervise this. So we just kind of absorbed it. And we started off with the two team leaders, for 36 people. That's quite a bit. We generally have a team leader for about 10 individuals, but I mean, these guys were pretty self-sustaining. They were quick learners, even training them on various jobs. Some of our jobs out here can take up to 5 days just to learn and be self-sufficient on. And these individuals just learn very, very quickly. They were very dependable in that aspect. Quality driven. I mean, some of our go through quality rates on some of the days of the Northwest Flex line were better than our normal lines. But as far as making it work, really, it was about a 3-week scenario of training on various processes across our normal production lines. And then on a Monday, we went live.
Wow, that's such an incredible story. Just the way that it all happened pretty organically. This wasn't something that was, pre-thought out by you guys where hey, we're going to go recruit a bunch of student athletes. You just kind of saw a trend there of, we've got a few of these guys. Can we get more of them? Guys and gals, I should say. And then you guys invested in training them. I'm curious, I think that's often a concern for a lot of manufacturers with short-term labor is we're going to invest, as you said, maybe 5 days to train on a process. And then how long are we going to be able to have this employee work for us, especially a part-time student athlete? What was your guys' thinking? Were there any concerns from management on investing resources in this short-term temporary labor pool?
No, not at all. We didn't have any concern. Excuse me, because these individuals, like I said, from the get-go, they learned so quickly. We knew going into this that our investment in their training time was going to be very minimal. We went in middle of July is when we started, and knowing that we're going to end this around August 5th. So we really only had a very short time with them, but we had no hesitation in the investment of the training time, just because we knew, our risk versus reward was there. We're going to get good product and good quality out of these individuals.
Jake, I've got a follow-up question. As you're onboarding these people, right off the university floor, into your factory. How did you shift that onboarding and training process to create that speed and momentum, or did it change?
It didn't really change. We had, we averaged 5 or 6 of these individuals going to one of our other 5 assembly lines that build that specific product. And really, they were absorbed well. I mean, training isn't something that's new to us. I mean, we're onboarding people every single day in assembly throughout all departments, but specifically in assembly, because that's where our biggest labor shortage is at the moment. But the, the onboarding was really no interruption to us. If it would have been 36 athletes showed up on a Monday, that may change it, but they were spread out throughout 3 weeks or so. So really, it wasn't anything that interrupted our production.
Yeah, that's
Everybody was very welcoming because, we kind of announced that, hey, we're going to make this happen, and announced the training plan to all of the production supervisors. They announced to their people. So everybody out there had a clear communication that these individuals are coming to our lines. They're going to be training, and eventually they're going to start up the Northwest Flex line is what we refer to it as.
that was going to be my next question for you, Jake, is what was the reaction from the rest of the company? A lot of the full-time folks who had been there a while, any concerns on their part? And then how do you assimilate, kind of these young college students into your broader workforce? Was there any changes you guys had to make there? Or was it just as easy as it sounds like it was?
No, it really wasn't a challenge, to be honest. I mean, like I said, we provided the production supervisor and the 2KMM team leaders, but beyond that, it was really no interruption. We've started a lot of assembly lines in this factory. Even in the 18 years I've been here, we've built new assembly lines. We've had new model products and, created teams in the past. And I've said this to my assembly staff, and we've heard it from other members of management. I have never seen an assembly line start as smooth as the Northwest Flex line. And I think that's, something to commend not only our staff on, but these individuals themselves. I mean, they had the motivation. They wanted to be working with their teams outside of just on a football field or on a basketball court. They wanted to see value in what they were doing. And I think they got that out of working here.
If I can add something in there as well, as far as the other areas of the plant, whether it be our quality teams, our materials, or anybody that supported the assembly lines, again, Jake's team has some very structured, the processes are in a way that it's the same thing over and over again. So our quality team, as they go in to analyze and confirm the quality, it doesn't make any difference who's doing the job. There's one way to do the job, and they're able to analyze that. The materials group are delivering parts to that particular area, no matter what. The standardization that is part of Kawasaki, and very definitely within Jake's group and assembly, was very evident with the other supporting tasks for Kawasaki, which was just added to the, while it's complex, Jake's team and these individuals made it look pretty easy.
Tim, were there any specific skills that you looked for in these applicants? Or you said we just want motivated people and able-bodied and people that want to show up and work. But were there any other attributes that you looked for?
We always would like to have somebody who's knowledgeable on assembly processes and engine knowledge, perhaps. But for 30 some years of my existence with Kawasaki, we've always had the philosophy that we can train anybody in whatever position. What we really look for are more of those soft skills. You mentioned the motivation, the getting out of bed in the morning and coming to work. Well, we got that in this group because they're already, by design in their athletic associations, they're motivated. They've got that self drive. This is a group that, from my understanding, they were up at the crack of dawn and hitting the weight rooms to do that portion of their training. Then, changing clothes, coming to work. And then when they got back home, they did more practicing and things like that. So it's not like we went out and recruited specifically to those, because again, we feel pretty confident in our standard jobs that we can train anybody in any position. And again, this group just made it so easy, from everything I heard from Jake and his team, that it went so smoothly for us.
Yeah, I've heard from other companies in other situations where the lack of standards or standardization creates that bottleneck. And it sounds like you don't have that bottleneck, which allows them to really hit the ground running and work, safely and be productive from day one.
And that's for us with anybody that we hire, whether it be through our contract agency, whether it be some full-times or our part-time people that we employ. Everything's standardized, whether it's our die casting operations, our machining, assembly, material, you name the group here in this company. And we try to standardize everything. And part of the reason for that is it just makes training that much easier. And I guess I'll use the word maybe traceable. You can tell when something is not quite right. And again, Jake's team, especially the experience he threw in there with this group of individuals, they excelled at that.
Yeah, I would imagine, again, with a high degree of standardization, motivation, discipline, this onboarding that you described, it's more than likely they came up with ideas and observations and suggestions. And so were you able to capture some of that, capture and bottle some of that excitement as these fresh eyes come in?
Yeah, I mean, they had several of them had several ideas that we implemented or took into consideration, but really for the most part, I mean, these guys, and I'm going to refer to them as guys because it was all males, but they were just here to work. They wanted to come in, they were motivated. They were not only here to work, but also have fun. I mean, there was good camaraderie between the individuals because not all of them knew each other coming into this. Yes, they were Northwest athletes, but they weren't all members of the same team until they arrived at the Northwest Flex line. They were eager, and after talking to several of them after a couple days, even when they were ending their employment here, they were very excited. They wanted to come back next year.
What was their perception like of manufacturing before they're coming in on their first day? Did you get any sense of what they were expecting and then, how that matched up with what it was really like for them?
Yeah, I mean, factories, ever since we were kids, you always hear the stigma against a factory of you don't want to work in a factory, you don't want to work in manufacturing. And I think a couple of them had that mentality. They had told their buddies, I had heard from a couple of the guys I was talking to initially, they have the I don't want to work in a factory. Well, once everybody started coming in and word started spreading, they're like, guys, this isn't that hard, and we're making a lot of money. I mean, we had several individuals that were coming from our Mazingo Park. We have a Mazingo Lake out east of Maryville. They were mowing, and the pay was significantly lower. I'm not saying anything about Mazingo, but we do pay a very, very good wage. And once those individuals got in here, they started telling their buddies, like, yeah, I mean, it's kind of overwhelming, but really, you give it a day and it's fun. It's entertaining. This is something that I don't think any of these individuals anticipated when they were coming to Maryville, Missouri, attending Northwest to be assembling commercial lawnmower engines. But I mean, I think they got a lot of satisfaction out of it.
Yeah, it's really neat. I think the other question I have is, do you think that their experience working at your plant and getting hands-on and participating in manufacturing, do you think that's going to change for some of them, their career outlook? Are you hearing from some of them they want to actually get into manufacturing after graduation?
With the short time that they were here, I didn't hear any mention of long term coming into manufacturing. Several of them asked about some of our higher level, more experienced engineering jobs. Production supervisors, they had asked quite a bit about what is that like? How long did it take you to get there? But for the most part, there were a lot of what I call farm boys that aren't afraid of work. They really weren't. They come in here, they jumped right in, they asked a lot of questions. I saw several individuals within a matter of the same day they were learning their job and mastering it, they were also telling their neighbors how to perform that task, or let me show you an easier way to do this. That was something that we don't see that often. It was kind of a breath of fresh air to have an entire team, 36 individuals that pick up quickly, and they are here to have fun. They're college kids, right? They're going to we want to show up late from break, show up late from lunch, have your cell phone out. We had some correcting of behavior, but nothing big. And in all honesty, they're working together and they're accomplishing product on behalf of our team. But several of them at the end did mention to our team leaders, supervisors, myself included, that they're really excited. They're asking, are you guys going to do this again next year? And, as fast as it came on, it seems like that's as fast as it went away. We would love to be able to team up and do this all year round, even if we could have multiple teams, multiple shifts. Um, College is starting up. Actually, I think it might be today at Northwest. So I think once everybody's schedules get aligned and they decide what they can work around, I would hope that we'll see some of those individuals or some of their buddies back. But I think definitely, according to this group, we're going to see a lot of them return next summer. And
Do
hopefully
you,
we can get more than a month and a half out of them.
I was going to ask, do you anticipate creating some more flexibility if they do want to work during the school year where maybe they're coming in for shorter shifts? Is that something you guys are looking to implement as well?
Yeah, we do have that currently, actually. We don't have a line dedicated to a shortened shift. That's not something that we have currently, but we always wait until once we get enough people, maybe they're working the 7 to noon every day or something. Then once we would feel comfortable with that and retain enough people to make that move, we would absolutely do this again. It doesn't have to be with college kids. It was just, that's what we had dealt with us in a short amount of time. And it escalated very quickly and we made it happen very quickly. That's just what we do at Kawasaki. We adapt and overcome.
Tim, you talked about this earlier, just with the challenges. People want that work-life balance. You want to retain workers. One of the things you got to give them is that work-life balance. Do you guys see that becoming something that you're going to have to accommodate more in the future? Is just maybe we have more 5-hour shifts, as Jake, you were saying there, the 7 to noon. Is that going to become more common, you think?
I think it is. I think it has already started somewhat. I mentioned earlier on, we recognize the need for people that just work 20 hours a week, basically a part-time situation, but for Kawasaki. We have talked about for some time now, and especially with the success of this program, nothing derogatory here, but a mom shift, a school mom shift. If there's parents out there who have to drop their kids off, but they could be at work at 9 o'clock and work until 2, and then they have to leave to pick up their children from school, there again, there's 5 hours a day. And as Jake mentioned, if we can get enough of them together, maybe we could do a whole line like we did with these athletes. But even at that, if it's just 1 or 2 of them, our contract service agency has worked very well with our teams here, what they call flex time. And we have several individuals who are only putting in maybe 4 or 5 hours a day because that's what their schedules allow. Now, to answer your question, yes, I think that's maybe off the wall to some of us a little bit older, but I think that's kind of the wave. I think people want to be able to work their hours. They want to do a good job, but they have other things going on. And can I work from here to here and I'll do good work for you in that time frame? So we continue to look for those kind of options. And we struck it very well with this athletic situation with the Northwest line. And it's just been impressive. And people here at Kawasaki still talk about that line and everything they got done. And I think it was mentioned in that article, they were doing over 250 engines a day in a 5-hour shift. And that's pretty impressive right there too.
Yeah, I think you guys, this seems like a really great example for other manufacturers to look into. How can we be more flexible with our shifts? You guys started a whole line for this group of employees that had unique circumstances that you had to work around. But I still want to go back to, it seems like what really enabled you guys to be successful here is you had standards in place and you had a good training program. I don't imagine you could onboard somebody, get them up to speed if you didn't have those things in place. If you're just relying on job shadowing, could you be successful with this type of model?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I put the credit on this to Jake and his team, because it would have been very easy for them to say 5 hours a day, we're not going to accomplish anything. The training's going to be crazy. It could have been so simple to say, no, we can't do this. Well, number one is it's the ingenuity of some of the individuals here at Kawasaki, the drive that they have to be successful. Then just our product line is in demand in today's market, that we're always looking at what can we do to get more of our product out there because our customers are begging for it. And again, kudos to Jake and his staff. This wasn't something that they just shrugged their shoulders. Oh yeah, we'll do it. It took some careful planning. It took some resources. It took a little bit of sacrifice, perhaps in some cases. But Jake's team was on top of it from the get go. And again, as you can tell from that article you read and the things we're saying, they were extremely successful at this, even though it was for a short period of time. We're very very proud of what went on in those few weeks out here in our production facility.
Yeah. And guys, it seems like the timing was perfect as you're supporting growth and kind of the new economy and the flex work. And what a brilliant idea to have a pilot and get some of those barriers knocked down and pave the way for future iterations.
Michael, I was going to ask you, have you seen anything like this before? Is this something where you've seen other manufacturers adapt in this way?
Very limited. I think the whole football team concept is pretty new to me. Working with a specific team, I've seen people working partial shifts or having these 20-hour-a-week jobs. Even my story, working part-time, the second half of second shift when Mount St. Helens blew up. I was a high school student making respirators part-time, and they were able to accommodate that because they had this huge volume growth. So I think the concept's been around for a while, but, leveraging a university, leveraging teams, people that are already working together in sports, I think is very unique. Guys, I was also wondering, was there any impact on the sports teams? Did they win more?
Well, we will find out in the coming weeks. The Bearcat football game 1 is September 1st.
Well, we'll be
we'll find out. But again, some of the reports that I heard, they were almost self-policing, because if one of them made a little quality error, then their teammates were on them, because if you want to use the analogy of you just fumbled the ball, something like that. And they don't like that. The drive that they have is to be excellent in what they do. And I think that this group of individuals proved that not only on the playing field, but also at an assembly line, Kawasaki in Maryville, Missouri, that drive for excellence in what they were doing for us in that short amount of time.
Well, Tim and Jake, I really appreciate you guys coming on the podcast today and sharing this story with us. It's absolutely fascinating. I think you've given some other manufacturers out there some ideas for how to be more flexible, maybe, and accommodate different potential candidate pools. So thank you guys for coming on today, and appreciate your time.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Voices of Manufacturing podcast with Brian Salee and Michael Mullenberg. This show is brought to you by Dazuki, the premier digital transformation solution that allows manufacturers to standardize operations. Our website, where you can listen to our episodes and find tons of helpful resources, is dazuki.com. Sign up for our monthly newsletter so you'll be the first to know about new episodes. That's dazuki.com, and join us in creating the front line of the future.